Assets versus liabilities. How to build wealth fast. In plain terms, the difference between assets and liabilities is very simple. Assets are things that put money in your pocket. Liabilities are things that take money out of your pocket. Obviously, your goal is to acquire as many assets as possible and as few liabilities as possible. In this video, I will teach you the difference between assets and liabilities in more detail, and then I will tell you how to acquire more assets and fewer liabilities. The difference between assets and liabilities should not be confused. The definition of an asset is very simple in financial accounting. It is anything that can be used to produce value, and obviously by value, I mean money. Still, many often lose sight of the difference between the two. Here is a classic example: a house. Some people think that buying a house is an asset. Unless you intend to sell the property, it is a liability, and a rather large one. It will take money away from you for years to come due to the mortgage, not to mention all the maintenance costs you will incur on a monthly basis. It is not like putting money in your pocket, if you ask me. On the other hand, if you intend to resell the property at a higher price, this can be considered an asset. You can also call assets investments if you pay to acquire them, because investments are anything that can bring a measurable return on an initial payment. For example, acquiring stocks or bonds is acquiring assets because they will generate money for you through dividends, or you can resell them and generate profits through capital gains. Let's explain further that a car is an asset. Another interesting thing is a car. If you buy a car, the price drops enormously the moment you buy it. Used cars are worth much less than new cars, so it would be foolish to consider them assets. Many still argue that since you can resell the car later, you can consider it an asset. In my world, a good asset must also generate profit. Something like a car that depreciates rapidly should not be considered an asset, whether you sell it 2 hours or 2 years later. By acquiring it, you will not be profitable because you will not sell it at a higher price. Obviously, there are exceptions. There are historical collectible cars that can increase in value. We are not talking about those rare cases. We are talking about what most people buy, which is a daily use car to drive for personal purposes. The difference between tangible and intangible assets is very simple. Tangible assets are physical. You can touch them and interact with them. Some examples are land, property, equipment, cash, inventory, and so on. Intangible assets are assets that you cannot touch. They are not physical. Some examples are trademarks, patents, copyrights, and so on. Regarding financial assets versus real assets, these are often confused and not separated. People simply group together real, financial, and tangible assets as if they were the same thing and brought the same profit, but that is not how it works in reality. Simply put, real assets have intrinsic value, which is the real value of an asset without any market influence. That is why they are called real assets. Financial assets use market price to define their value, which means you could more easily end up paying something more than it is actually worth, which is not positive because you will lose money. It is also the reason why people like Warren Buffett talk a lot about discovering the intrinsic value of a company so that you know if a stock costs more than its real value. If the market price is lower than the intrinsic value, you will very likely make a profit in the future when the market price approaches or exceeds the intrinsic value. Financial assets, on the other hand, derive their value from contractual claims. Two examples are stocks and bonds, which I will explain shortly, and they are considered tangible assets among themselves. Financial assets are easier to convert into money. Assets like real estate and commodities are harder to monetize. The mother of all assets, stocks. If you do not know how they work, I will make it so simple that you will understand them 100% by the end of this video. Stocks are the most well-known assets and have enormous potential for those who know how to invest in them. What are stocks? Also called shares, they are a fraction of a company. When you buy a stock, you are essentially buying a very small percentage of that company. Imagine having a house and you can come and buy a brick. You own that brick and are part of the family because you own that brick. Now, why in the world would you want to own a brick? Give me a minute and I will get there. First, I need you to understand that when you buy a stock, you are fundamentally becoming an associate of that company. If you own enough stocks, which means you own a larger slice of the company, you might even have voting rights when the company makes important decisions. There are two main ways to make money with stocks. The first, which is the most common, is capital gain. This means you buy a stock and wait for its price to rise, and then you sell it. For example, you might buy a stock for $5 and then sell it for $7. You would make a profit of $2 and you are set. Prices do not just go up, they fluctuate. This is what all the charts represent. Prices can go up and down depending on the market's demand and supply. The more demand a stock has, the more it will cost. So, if you think a stock will increase in demand in the future, you should buy it because it will increase in value, which means you will be able to sell it at a higher price. However, you should be careful if your predictions are wrong and the price does not go up but down, you will lose money. Many consider this a gamble, but if you know what you are doing and evaluate the companies you buy, you should make money most of the time. The second way to make money with stocks is through dividends, which are issued annually, quarterly, or semi-annually, twice a year. Dividends are the equivalent of your ownership in that company. Let's go back to the brick example. If you buy one brick out of 100, you will get 1% of the profits of that house. Does that make sense so far? How do you acquire stocks? The easiest way to do this is to open an investment account through an online stockbroker. Your bank probably also offers these services, so you might be able to invest the old-fashioned way directly with your bank. Fees apply in both cases, so every transaction is regulated and taxed. You could also buy directly from the company, but it is much more difficult. It takes time and a lot of capital. Real estate is another asset. In certain cases, I say in certain cases because, as I said before, owning a house to live in for the rest of your life without the intent to sell it is not an asset, it is an expense. But then there are real estate investors who invest in undervalued properties to resell or rent them, so they become an asset. This is very simple in theory but a whole different story when it comes to practice. Here is how it works. As a real estate agent, you start the day looking for interesting deals. You look for undervalued properties. What does undervalued mean? It means you are looking for something that has a lot of potential but has been managed poorly for a while, so it might have some problems to solve, which is why the price is low. You will solve those problems and resell the property at a higher price. By solving problems, I mean doing anything that makes the price of the property go up, like remodeling it, repainting it, or adding furniture. There are many factors that influence the price of a property. It is not just about how it has been managed but also things like timing, location, neighborhood, economic indicators, and interest rates. These are just some examples. Or, instead of reselling the property, you could rent it out after fixing it up. This will ensure you get a little extra money every month. There are different types of properties: residential, industrial, land, commercial, and special uses. But realistically, you probably do not have the money or the security and knowledge to buy and rent or sell properties. You probably do not even know where to look. This means you cannot start acquiring these types of assets. Well, first of all, you can always learn how to do it. Another option is you could buy REITs, real estate investment trusts. With REITs, you would not need all the knowledge. You would simply trust a company to invest your money in the real estate sector, and they would give you a dividend in return for your investment. Many argue that these are great assets because they provide high returns from dividends and long-term appreciation, meaning the prices go up and you beat inflation. Knowledge is a resource. Knowledge is indeed an intangible resource. The reason it is considered a resource is rather simple. Let's say you own a marketing company. What you do is rather simple. You help companies find more customers through internet marketing. You understand everything from marketing strategies to approach and copy. As the founder of this successful business, you cannot do everything yourself, so you have to delegate. First, you hire an accountant and a financial advisor to handle that side of the business. Then you start hiring content creators. You need them to create the content that will be marketed. Then you need to hire good salespeople to find even more clients for your company. They should take contacts and convert them into buyers. Now, the better the salespeople you hire, the more clients you will close, the more money you will make. Do you see where I am going with this? If you invest in hiring talented people who know how to sell, their knowledge is an asset. It simply becomes something you will leverage to make more money. Additionally, the return on your investment is absolutely measurable since you can easily calculate how much you spend monthly or a commission per salesperson, and the value of their knowledge is defined by how much money they bring in. How does this apply to you? It is unlikely that you have a company that needs to hire people, so here is the point: you can become the resource. If you learn a valuable skill that you know entrepreneurs need to grow their business, learning is fundamental, and the better your knowledge becomes, the more you will be paid for it. Now you have to look at this as how to make money work for you. 10 secrets about money that you will not learn. What was your experience with the topic covered in this video? Tell us about it in the comments, we are curious to know. And if you have any doubts or questions, don't hold back. Leave a comment. Even just a simple like would be perfect, but most importantly, subscribe to the channel to stay informed about upcoming releases.